Well, hello everybody and good afternoon to you. You are very welcome to this webinar from Enterprise Ireland, where we are talking about the Student Entrepreneur Awards competition. They are Ireland's largest student awards competition, and they are open to full-time third level students wherever they are on the island of Ireland. My name is Jonathan Healy. I shall be guiding you through the course of the next hour and a bit as we hear from some very interesting speakers who have a lot of information to impart, and more important, information that might help you actually go on and win an award of some kind. Now, this is an annual event that's led and managed by Enterprise Ireland. It's got a number of co-sponsors, so we have to say hello to them and wish them well. They are, of course, Cruikshank, Grant Thornton, and the local Enterprise office. And the awards have grown from strength to strength since they were first set up 40 years ago, when many of you did not exist on the planet. Sadly, I did, but at 4, I wasn't coming up with too many good ideas. Enterprise Ireland recognises that young entrepreneurs and third-level students, like you, represent a seedbed for future business startups, with a number of startups in the last couple of years that have really shone through. Most recently, from the High Potential Startups unit, we've seen Tippy Talk and Micron Agritech and the finalists. They're a great example of the commercial potential for student entrepreneurs. And these awards aim to support and encourage more of you start your own businesses and really consider enterprise as a valid career option. Participating student teams are given a chance, and this is the interesting part, we can win a cash prize worth €35,000. If we were in a room, I would encourage you all to go woo at this point, but obviously you're at home and you can't do it. And if you did, your housemates would probably be a bit concerned. But anyway, 35 grand in cash prizes, in addition to receiving mentoring and business consultancy from Enterprise Ireland and program sponsors. We're getting to the sharp end of this because we are 6 weeks away from the competition closing on Friday, the 12th of March. So you have to submit your 2-minute video and turn your ideas into commercial reality and apply to Student Entrepreneur Awards today. There is a lot to get through and a lot to talk about. So who have we got to talk to today? Well, on our panel, we've got Mairead English-Marr, who is the Senior Development Advisor with the HPSU. We've Richard O'Connor, he is the Managing Partner with Cruikshank, and we have Nick and Jack Cotter from Cotter Agritech. And I'm going to ask all of them now to turn on their cameras, and hopefully they should appear around me and near me and somewhere nearby. There we go. There's Richard, there's Nick and Jack, and there's Mairead. We do the awkward waving. Everybody, awkward waving. There we have it. Very good. Nick and Jack, very poor awkward waving there. Very poor. I would have expected more from you. We always have to, in the broadcasting world, where we see two people who are close together, to remind everybody they're brothers and they live in the same house. So therefore, they're in the bubble. You could also pass for a boy band, lads. I'm just putting that out there. If the whole agri-tech thing doesn't work out for you. Look, we have a lot to get through and a very busy agenda. And all of this is geared towards helping the people who are watching right now to get their pitches right and to support people to get their pitches right. But I need you to talk to me, first of all, a little bit about your own journey, small bit of an elevator pitch. So the first thing I'm going to ask each of you in turn is, how do these awards prepare students for the real world? And I'm going to begin, Nick and Jack, with ye as to how ye think that these awards work.
Yeah, well, number one, the process of the Student Entrepreneur Awards provides a great opportunity to improve your ability to communicate. I believe that in everything you do, you're selling. You're selling your ideas, your point of view, and yourself, and even all three at the same time often. And students really shouldn't go into life without the ability to communicate, because your ability to communicate is one of the biggest things to predict success in life, because the three things that are the largest predictors of success are your ability to speak, your ability to write, and the quality of your ideas. So after going through the Student Entrepreneur Awards, you'll have honed your ability to communicate your arguments clearly and to be precise in your speech. And this is why I think you should see this being really valuable, and why I would strongly recommend to enter the competition. And number two, you will get feedback on the quality of your ideas. And this is what other people see as important in your business, and maybe perhaps where you can improve. And for us, we believe it's crucial, because digesting the feedback we've received from judges and mentors has accelerated our progress faster than anything else.
Okay, brilliant. Jack, you will speak at some point in the future. Hold your thought for now, though, because all the good stuff is going to come out of you later on. Richard O'Connor, for these awards, how do you think they prepare the students for the real world?
I think it's a fantastic opportunity for students to put together an idea or or some sort of business plan where they then get to question it thoroughly, inside out, back to front, from top to bottom, middle to ends. The whole point about success in life is not necessarily the problems that you face, but it's how you overcome them and how you look to overcome them. You know, you may have hiccups along the way, but if you've tried to come up with solutions, as likely as not, you'll do okay in the long run. So it's that opportunity to start questioning stuff, to start examining stuff, and to start finding out what sort of questions you're going to be faced later on in life. You know, whether you continue with entrepreneurship or whether you go to work internally for a company or however it might be.
Okay, very good. And Mairead, same question to you. What do these awards do?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. A little bit like what both Jack and Richard have said, the Student Enterprise Awards is a great foundation for the future. And what I think it might give you is the opportunity to assess, is entrepreneurship and startup for you? Going through the process of the Student Enterprise Awards will give you a flavour for that. And sometimes people get the experience and it really ignites a spark in them to do something with business in the future. However, not for everybody. Some people learn great skills and experience throughout the programme, and they learn a huge amount of teamwork, working with others, as the guys have said, communication. But also, I have found down through the years, even if you work with the Student Enterprise Programme, it's a great speaking point at interviews or at any point in the future when you talk about the time that you took an idea, you brought it through the process, and you identified whether it was a good idea or not to set up a business. So it will always help you.
And I've spoken a lot on other webinars, and apologies if you heard me say this before, that universities, third level institutions are completely different beasts to what they would have been when I went there 20 years ago. You got your education and you were thrown out, and the best of luck to you. Whereas now we support entrepreneurship at that very important stage when your ideas are at their freshest and have the potential to grow. So we get into that. But Mairead, a business plan is crucial for any business starting out. And we're asking people to put together a business plan. And in that business plan, you have to understand what the company does, who your market is. There's a lot to get into it. How important is it to get it right?
Sure. I think, Jonathan, that is really, really important. I think from our experience and my experience working with startups over the last 15 years, people find the business plan extremely daunting. They say, oh my gosh, how am I going to go about this? And they feel daunted, they don't know where to start or how to start. And the first thing to understand is, why is a business plan important? And what I would say to you is, the business plan is your roadmap. It's about identifying for you how you're going to go on your journey, and this journey of setting up your own business. It's really important that you take some time to sit back, to consider all the journey that you're going to have to take and what are the key elements of your business. And I break it down into 3 key areas that you have to look at. You have to look at your product and your market, you have to look at your operations and your team, and you have to look at finance. Am I going to make any money out of all this? The business plan is really, really important. A lot of people think that, oh, I must do the business plan for other people. I must do the business plan for the Student Enterprise Awards. I must do the business plan for my investors. No, the first thing is,
they think it's a box ticking exercise rather than an actual functional thing they should do.
Absolutely, totally, Jonathan. And it's really important. So first of all, it's really important for you. Secondly, it is important for you when they're trying to raise finance. It's important for the banks. They want to know that you've sat down, you've thought through the business, and also for investors and for agencies like ourselves in Enterprise Ireland and in the local enterprise office. It's really important that we see that you've gone through the process of thinking through your business. It's also an opportunity to identify any gaps where you don't have enough information. And I'd leave you with one thought on this. It's the old age saying of, if you don't know where you're going, how do you know how to get there? And sometimes you could end up someplace else altogether. So please do take the discipline of putting your business plan together. It will really stand to you in the future.
Yeah, my favorite phrase, I always use it in my own business, is I don't know where you're going, but I wouldn't start from here. And that is a conversation that's had at the start of a lot of business plans. Jack and Nick, I mean, I suppose in finding business partners, it was easy enough for you. You lived in the same house, but when you set about that business plan, and you did it early enough, let's not forget, how did you go about it? And that kind of onerous responsibility on you when you were a lot younger to produce a business plan where you probably didn't understand what a business plan was?
I guess having grown up on a sheep farm, for us, we understand our customers' pain points quite well. and having developed the product out of necessity for our own difficulties in handling our lambs. The core of our business is product R&D, so our other focuses will come from our own strengths. So Nick's would be marketing and mine would be design. But Cotter Agrotech's focuses in designing great products from our ideas and then marketing and selling those ideas. But our weaknesses, which we've identified from our business plan, would be a lack of expertise in marketing. So we knew we needed to outsource. Now, for anybody listening, you need to always remember, focus on what you're good at. That is what makes you different from the competition. And where you don't have the brains, buy the brains. And in doing so with experts, do it with experts. Otherwise, it's the blind leading the blind.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, I guess it's important to remember starting a business is not easy. It never was. And 8 out of 10 fail, and many people take many attempts to actually get it right. And as such, you should afford yourself the protection by writing a business plan, because if you don't, we like to say it's like going into battle without a weapon. A business plan prevents you falling into potholes along the way, because it gets you to plot out what issues you will have to address on the road ahead. And I guess the underlying secret sauce behind our success, if you like, has been going slow to go fast later. Because if you don't get the foundation of the business right, you're not going to be able to fix the problems later on, and you're going to make mistakes. So you
Can I
need
ask
to.
you a question? Yeah, can I ask you a question, Nick? It's just something that's relevant to you guys in particular, because I know you've been at this since you were teenagers. Did you come up with the product first and then the business plan? I presume you did. You had the eureka moment, and at some point you had to translate that into, well, we're going to have to run with it.
Yeah, we invented the product a full year before we ever thought about actually commercializing it, because as Jack said, it was purely, we had a problem on our farm. It was a pain to dose these lambs. It was incredibly difficult, taking a lot of time, causing, like, it was killing our backs. It was hard work, and we said we need to solve this for us. And then it was a year later before Jack got the idea and said maybe other farmers might have this problem, and then we started to look down the route of coming up with a business plan.
Took him a full year to come up with that. Did you think he'd come up with it sooner? And I'm looking at you. But the point is that
when to be occupied with some other things alongside business and parents.
It went from strength to strength, to be fair, and lots of good ideas have come out of it. But Mairead, if we can talk about the successful roadmap, because the business plan is one thing, but you have to set out the roadmap as well, and it has to be realistic as well. You have to identify, like the lads did, identify a product. What is the consumer demand? How are we going to get it? How are we going to roll it out? If there's intellectual property, which we'll talk to Richard about in a minute, how do we protect that? There's an awful lot to map out on that roadmap.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's really interesting to hear Nick and Jack speak, because they're talking about, you know, they identified a problem 12 months beforehand. They had a problem on their farm and they were trying to come up with a solution. And it's really important for your product to be meeting a need and to be solving a problem. So that's what we call about the product being market led. There's a need for it and it's fixing a problem. So when it comes to your product, you know, the first thing that you have to undertake is market research. It's really, really important to try and understand that piece. Are you solving the problem? And, you know, you need to go outside of your immediate circle of friends and family to find out that. You need to go out to the market, you need to test, and you need to check that there is a real need. When it comes to the product, I always like to think of it in terms of who, what, where, and how. Who is my customer? Where are they? How can I target them? How will they buy from me? You know, these questions are really the burning issues of the product in the market. How will I sell? Who will buy it from me? Do I need to go through third parties? And we can see down through the years in Ireland, we have a huge number of brands who've really got that who, what, why, where really, really important. If you take a company like O'Neill's, they were founded in 1918, and here we are in 2021, and they're still going strong, and they've reinvented themselves. They have found that there's a need in the market for sustainable carbohydrate food for young people who are, you know, exercising and fit. These are really good examples of companies who really understand the need and the why and the what of their product. So what I would say to people listening in this afternoon is take a bit of time around this. Understand who the product is going to be targeted at. Go out, talk to them, ask them, what do they think? Some people are afraid of sharing their ideas at an early stage. I think Richard will speak a little bit to that in a moment about IP, intellectual property. But you do need, in certain ways, to go out, undertake that market research and identify if there is a need in the market. And then following on from that, you do look at your route to market, who's going to buy it, how are you going to sell it, do you need to go through channels? Nowadays, you know, online sales are very, very important, but that comes with a huge marketing spend. So you really have to think through. We all in our own lives have the experience of buying products. We understand how we buy them and from who, and draw on that information because it really helps you as you go along in your journey.
Nick and Jack, if I can come back to you, I mean, you're serial entrepreneurs. You guys started selling firewood. Now, you can't patent firewood because firewood is firewood. There's lots of others out there, but you became particularly good at selling it, right? And then you set up the Cotter Crate, which is that lamb handling system that you were talking about, Nick, that you need to get there. Did you at some point then decide, hang on, we're onto a good thing here. We've realized that this is unique in the market. How did you come to that conclusion? Did you always have it in mind that you were going to patent something? And then how quickly did you move when you realized that?
Yeah, similar to building on what Mairead said, the second that Jack kind of got the idea, like what we always do, going back to going slow to go fast later, we started off with market research. So what we always say is that you need to demonstrate that there are people out there who are going to take money from their pocket and put it into yours. And then in your role, you need to really understand what the customer wants. So what are their pain points? What features are going to deliver value for them? So for us, in order to be confident to go ahead with it after when we got to that 12-month point, we were like, maybe we have something here. We needed to see that other farmers were suffering from the same problems that we were suffering. Basically, lamb handling is difficult. And if we knew how the lambs were getting on, we'd be able to make the farm more profitable. So we drew up a Google survey, got 535 Irish sheep farmers to respond. And we asked them the question, would you buy lamb handling equipment if it made handling your lambs faster and easier? And 88% of those farmers said yes. We also asked them, would they buy it if they could weigh their lambs, and by weighing them, they could track the animal performance? And 91% said yes. So there, in two short statements, we were able to clearly see there's a market need for what we have. And I always pull Jack's legs in this because he's the engineer and kind of the technical lead. I'm the commercial lead. But the engineers can come up with the best products in the world. But unless there's people willing to pay money for what you're trying to sell, you don't have a sustainable business. And that's why this, for me anyway, it's singly the most important part of that entire business plan, because the business ain't going to last if it's not making money. So a big thing, again, relaying Mairead's point, customer-centric focus. Focus on the customer and what they're willing to take money out of their pocket for.
I mean, Jack, you were effectively a customer of yourself. You knew that it was going to work. You knew the product was there, but there was still a bit of a gap, wasn't there, between getting it to market and coming up with a good idea. And I don't know how it was in your case, but people who design things need to be willing to listen to what the consumer wants at the end of the day, because what they think might be the right product might just be slightly off.
Mm.
Would you agree, Jack?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The whole development phase was interesting, to say the least. A lot of different ideas along the way, but you have to constantly keep going back to, okay, is this going to add value to the customer? Are they going to be willing to pay for it? And if they're not, it's just going to cost you money to produce it, basically.
Richard, IP strategy. Again, IP is probably one of the last things that comes into someone's mind when they have the eureka moment, right? They're just delighted that they've found something. We heard the two lads talking about the survey they did. They realized they were onto a potentially good product before they got out there. But you need to kind of really think about, well, what does need to be protected here? What can I protect? What is unique about this product? Or am I using something that is just somebody else's product repackaged? There's a lot you need to think about when you're getting the product ready for market.
There is, but I think you might be surprised. An awful lot of people, I suppose, IP is one of those things that you hear about more and more frequently. I think the reason for that is that headlines in newspapers and on radio stations, TV channels, they're attracted by numbers. And if you say that, company X has made, $600 million by selling their patents, that'll get people's attention. So I think, I would regularly get phone calls. I would say I probably take 3 or 4 phone calls on a daily basis from people that say to me, I've had an idea, how do I now protect it? And the question for me is always, okay, have you got an idea that you're trying to protect, or have you got some intellectual property that you can protect? Okay, so for example, and I'm going to come back to this Nick's comment about the marketing question of, and sorry, Nick, I'm not going to quote you accurately here, but would you buy, you know, lamb handling equipment that made your job easier?
Yes.
I mean, that's a really open question, but it's also a closed question, yes or no. You know, so in many ways, they were able to go to the market and ask, well, is there a market for what I've got here, without actually saying what they were doing. Okay, now I've seen that lamb handling unit, and you would get nothing from that other than it's a lamb handling unit. So the first question that people have when they have an idea for a business is, what is it about the idea that makes it special? That makes it.
We're going to come back to that, because there's a lot, and we go through these slides that we'll come back to that slide that's on the screen in a little bit later on. But I want to talk about the operations part of the business before we get to intellectual property, because it's a huge area. We want to come back to it. Mairead, if I can ask you, a student starting out, like, there's a whole load of questions. Do I need a premises? Do I need specialist equipment? How am I going to get it to the end user? Who's going to look after the financial side of it? I mean, all of that's very daunting when you're in college.
Sure, I can imagine that it seems, you know, quite an awful lot of information at the very early stage. But what I advise, you know, everybody listening today, is that you just take that piece by piece. Well, you know, when you've identified your product and market, and you know what you're dealing with, the next question that you have to identify is, where can I get that product? Do I have to make it myself? Do I have to buy it in? Which, you know, what is the way that I can get that product to the customer? So, you know, if you have to buy it in, you're thinking about things like warehousing. You know, do I go to China to get it? Do I go to England to get it? You know, where is my product coming from? By the same token, if you're going to manufacture it and make it in Ireland, do you do that? Do you outsource the manufacturing in Ireland, where you have somebody very close that you can go to and look at the product? These are the questions that you start to ask yourself. And, you know, the answers to the questions come up as you go through the process. It might seem daunting, but bit by bit, you will get the answers to those questions. But I would say in Ireland, it's a fantastic place to live. They say that, you know, in the likes of America, you're 10 steps removed from knowing anybody, whereas in Ireland, you're about 2 steps removed from knowing anybody. And people are really good in Ireland to give people a hand, and to, you know, be open, and to give the benefit of their wisdom or advice, or have a cup of coffee with people. So what I would encourage you to do is to start going out and talking to people, asking them, how do they do it? Where do they source their product from? Who are they working with? All this will help you to crystallize the operations part of the business. It might take you a little bit of time, but you will get there. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. For some people, they start off by, you know, buying in their product with a plan to make it in 2 years' time themselves. Some people start straight away to maybe manufacture their own product. Some people start in their bedroom with a laptop and are selling their products from their bedroom or from their garden shed. There's an awful lot of different types of business.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it. But I suppose that conversation that you have to have. But Mairead, the big fear that people starting out in business, particularly if they have a product that has intellectual property, I'm terrified to tell anyone about this. I'm scared that if I give away the crown jewels too early, someone will rob my idea. That is overblown, isn't it? Because you have to be careful, but at the same time, you know, people are there to support you, and there are helps and supports that are out there.
Sure, and there's a way to talk about your product without giving away that secret sauce that we hear so much about. A conversation with Richard at an early stage will advise you around that. And as Nick and Jack spoke about, you know, they have their lamb handling system. There could be 2,000 different types of lamb handling system, but there's something in their system that makes it better or more effective, or, you know, does the job better than other products in the market. It's very hard to have something extremely new and novel, but there's always a different way that something can be done that makes it more effective. And there's ways to talk about that without giving away the specifics of the information. As I said, a conversation with Richard and people who work in the intellectual property arena will help to assuage those concerns. They'll tell you up front, can I get a patent on this? Can I get a trademark on this? Am I wasting my time? You know, do you just have to go straight to market and get a first mover advantage? So, you know, as I said, just take the steps, talk to the necessary people, and soon you will be able to identify the next steps to get that product into the market.
Nick and Jack, I've got 5 older brothers who spent most of their lives beating me up, and as I've still talk to them and have a great relationship with them now. But I'm not sure I'd ever gone into business with them. Was the brothers thing an advantage or a disadvantage when you came to being your own boss?
I would say overall an advantage, in fairness. I suffer from much the same, being the younger brother.
But nothing too bad.
Necessary for growing up, I think. I guess, as mentioned, Jack's kind of more technical. He's doing engineering in college. I'm doing law and business in college. So completely different skill sets. We're not identical twins. And I suppose that prevents a lot of potential blind spots for only 2 people in the business. So look, if other people are looking for a business partner, what I'd say is that you should look for someone that has the opposite set of skills that complement yours. Like if there's only 2 of you, ideally one of you is the commercial lead, the other person is the technical lead, and that kind of covers most of the bases that you need to be worried about. Being brothers, I suppose we have very similar values because we were raised by the same parents, and we have each other's back in a way that not every traditional business would. And then being from a family farming background means that work is kind of very central to life anyway. It's what we're getting pulled out of bed at 7 o'clock in the morning to go looking at lambs over Christmas when we were younger. It's no different, and it's still the same now. We're very focused on work. So I suppose we have to manage the relationship because it can come into the dinner table or Christmas time, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just needs to be managed. And no different to any other 2 people who spend a lot of time around each other. Of course we argue, but when we do argue, it's about being productive, and it's positive towards the business. So when we do argue, it's just a case of whoever puts forward the best argument wins. It did in the case of Big Brother Jack winning all the arguments.
Which I'm sure, Jack, you would argue that you should win all the arguments anyway, because you're always right. When you look at it, Jack, from your perspective, it would be easier in life to take on no responsibility and to get a job and go out and to do it, but that would deny you the opportunities that you have of being your own boss and your chance to make an impact. Has that helped drive you on, do you think, becoming a business owner as opposed to a business consumer?
I would say yes. I guess as an entrepreneur, you get to build your dream instead of helping somebody else build theirs. You know, you're in control, you're the boss, and every day can be exciting. We've had some incredible experiences over our journey so far, and we've met some amazing people, and we've learned a huge amount. And I guess we're filled with pride every time we see our firewood noted as the best in the country, or organic lamb winning an Irish Quality Food Award, and even being called stunning by Neville Maguire. So we've even gotten to be on the lady.
The lamb was called stunning, not you personally.
Yes. But we've even got to be on the Late 8 Show, something that we've always wanted to do from the very beginning. And at the moment, we have farmers from all over the world asking us, you know, when is this going to be ready? When is it going to be launched? When can I buy it? Where can I buy it? And it's really exciting. And so the opportunity to have a significant and far-reaching impact on the future of farming is incredibly exciting. And it's what gets us jumping out of the bed. I guess some of the cons are, before choosing this path, you need to know that it's important that no matter what type of business you start, that it does require you to dedicate as much of your time as you can commit to it to get it off the ground. No one will walk the road for you, but if you show true commitment to your vision, people will want to walk the road with you. And the simple fact is there's no substitute for hard work and determination to succeed. You know, being the boss comes with its own set of challenges too, and it does require to make some difficult decisions sometimes. But all in all, I think me and Nick couldn't dream of doing anything else.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Well, the old saying goes, the buck does stop with you when you are a business owner, but let's talk about books if we can. Mairead, when I set up my own business 4 years ago at this point, the one black hole I had, I could talk about what the business was going to do and how we were going to grow and it was going to be fantastic. I hated the financial planning side of it, absolutely despised it. It was just one of the things in school I just had no real acumen for. I couldn't talk my way out of financial. I could talk my way out of any other situation. But a financial plan is very important for the students who are watching right now, isn't it? And how important is it that they get it, they get what needs to be on the balance sheet, the difference, the basic difference between sales, profit, cash flow, all of that.
Sure, and you know, Jonathan, you're not alone in facing the fear of financials. What I would say, and building on what Nick and Jack were talking about there, You know, people have different skills, and it's important to recognize if those skills are internal to you in the team or whether you need to outsource them. And that's the first thing that I would say. But what I would say is that you can't always outsource everything. You know, you, as the lad said, the buck stops with you. You have to get your head around those financials, and you have to understand whether or not your business can make money. And it's quite simple. You know, when it all boils down, it's, can you sell something? Can you pay the costs associated with it, and can you make a profit? And you know, that's simple commerce, and that's what you have to start to get your head around. I suppose when we talk to a lot of businesses, we see two areas. You know, from a financial perspective, you have to look at profit and you have to look at cash flow. And what they say is profit is vanity and cash is sanity. And what they mean about that is you can make a profit in your business at the end of the year, but you mightn't get to the end of the year. You might run out of cash in the meantime. So that's why you have to look at profit and you have to look at cash. So when you look at profit, you take, you know, your best estimate of how many units maybe you can sell in a day, a week, a month, a year. You take away those costs and you see if you're going to make money. Am I going to make a profit? And then you look at the cash flow. And that is really like all our own bank accounts. It's the money that goes in on every weekday or month and comes out every weekday or month. At the end of that month, do I have enough money to cover my bills or don't I? A cash flow is exactly the same. It's looking at the cost of the business, the inflows, which is the money coming in from the customers, and the outflows, all my bills. And have I enough money each month to cover those? Sometimes you won't, and sometimes at the startup stage you have to look at where can I get that money. And you know, you might have savings, you might have to go to the bank, you might have to go to investors, you might have to go to the agencies of support. It depends. But you know, it's really, really important that you put your hands around the financial plan and you try not to be too afraid of it and get some help as well.
Look, I mean, Nick, I suppose for you, you've done it more than once. You started out with the firewood business, then you moved into lamb, and then you moved into the cotton crate and everything else that's going wrong with the wider business. But did you get invaluable experience? I'm guessing firewood, it's an in and out business. You don't ship much of it during the summer, so you had to learn to manage seasonality and everything that came with it. Was that good experience for you? And what did you learn about the importance of the financial side?
Yeah, I mean, starting off, we were incredibly young. I was only 11 and Jack was 13 when we decided on the evenings after school to go chopping up some logs with hatchets, and then we got onto more safer equipment to start off a business. And it was literally just packing net bags in the evening after school and knocking door to door to do it. Now, for the first 3 years, our parents entertained us doing it because, well, sure, we were idle, as you say.
Well, it got you out of the house. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Money sick of seeing us and trying to mind us and entertain us. So at the start, we never really took it that seriously. It wasn't until we were about 3 or 4 years in that we actually had to seriously consider a lot of these things that we've talked about so far today. And when we got to that point, it was, of course, the financial plan is the absolute key. As I said earlier, you need to find people who are willing to take money out of their pocket and put it into yours. So what I'd say about financial planning is it comes back to my earlier point about preventing mistakes. The business plan, and particularly the financial aspect of it, is about understanding what are the absolutely essential things you need to get to the next stage for you, the next step to push you forward and to accelerate you. So, and this is what will guide you in terms of what you should spend your money on. And saying we use around here is that when you are putting together these things, better to be approximately right than precisely wrong. And what I mean by that is just be sensible about your cost allocation. Have a rough idea of how much product you're going to sell. Have a rough idea if you're going to be having employees and what markets you're going to be operating in. And that provides the vast majority of the guidance you'll need. The long and short, we say, is unless there's an actual need for something, don't be spending money on it. And especially important at the very start, because cash, as Mairead was stressing so strongly, is so valuable at an early stage of business.
I'm robbing that. It's better to be approximately right than precisely wrong. That's going to get me out of a lot of problems in the next while. I'm using that throughout 2021, whatever the year throws at me. Richard, we've been limbering you up to this point because this is the bit where we really dip in to intellectual property. We'll throw up your slides there if we can now to talk about this, because IP is vital in driving a young business. And not to kind of overly concern people, but misplacing the IP could eventually cost you a zero on the value of your business if you were to sell it down the line. So it is important to get it right.
It is, but it isn't the be all and end all of the business. You know, I mean, what Mairead spoke about in terms of cash being King, I think to paraphrase, she's absolutely correct. I mean, if you can't pay your suppliers, etc., it doesn't matter how great your IP is. IP is merely a tool, you know. It's a tool like any other tool, you know, whether that be machinery or plant, whatever it might be. So you have to ask what it is and what's it doing for you. A definition of intellectual property consists of 3 different things. Firstly, it must be an idea of the mind. So pretty much everything satisfies that criteria. Secondly, it must be something that somebody's prepared to pay for, hand over money for. And thirdly, there must be some law by which you can protect it. If those 3 things don't exist, then it isn't intellectual property, it's an idea. And it's important to get, you know, your head around that. If I decide that I'm going to buy a van and fit it out with a pizza oven and then call to the Healy household and make and sell pizzas to each of the individual Healys within the house, whatever their spec is, that might be the best business idea, the business plan in the world ever.
We do like pizza.
But I can't protect it in any way. So therefore, it's not intellectual property. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is you have to identify what is it that your customers are buying. And in that, you know, example, it might be because I'm great crack and I'm good with the old chat. But that's not intellectual property. That's me being a nice guy.
Yes.
So I can't protect that.
But trust me, if I could patent talking on the radio and saying nothing, I would be home and host at this point. But unfortunately, here I am.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. You know, and you know, if you were to take it, you know, well, you know, what's your intellectual property? It's your reputation, it's your name. You know, it's that's why people are buying from you. So I think what you have to understand is, okay, what is intellectual property? It's something that people are going to pay money for, and I can protect by law. And then secondly, what sort of intellectual property might it be? Okay, and if we're talking about what the lads have done in terms of the Cotter crate, for example, you know, patents are important. What is a patent?
Actually, let's move to the next slide, because I think the next slide illustrates a lot of what we're talking about here.
Yeah. So in terms of patents, which people tend to think is the most important, most valuable form of intellectual property, it's not, or they're not, but we'll come back to that. What a patent is a monopoly that prevents somebody from manufacturing, distributing, assembling, or selling a product in a particular jurisdiction. It's a technical solution to a technical problem. The lads had a problem. How do you hold lambs in place when you're trying to do certain actions that you need to do? They came up with a way of doing that. So their technical solution is the reason that you go back to the question, would you buy lamb handling equipment from me? Well, I would if it worked and it doesn't damage the lambs. Well, then there we go. That's valuable. We have intellectual property and we can protect that by using patents. And the key thing about patents just needs to be reminded, you know, get this out there. You can't disclose a patent before you start telling people about it. Okay? So that's kind of key to remember. So pick up the phone, talk to a patent attorney, get an idea whether or not your idea is patentable. That will cost you €0. Okay? When you know it's patentable or not patentable, then you start writing your business plan. And one of the things that wasn't talked about in the business plans, and there was a lot said there that is really relevant, but one of the points that didn't come up, but I think is almost as important as cash, it's almost as important as, you know, what happens if something goes wrong, is where's your market? You know, if you're selling Hurley sticks, the only market that's important is Ireland. You know, so if you're doing budgets, if you're doing cash flow, you need to know what you're going to be spending. So if you're only protecting something by patent in Ireland, there you go. That's all you need to do.
So moving on to, let's talk about the other types that are there. So trademarks, designs, copyright. I mean, all of these things people will be familiar with, but they mightn't understand the ins and outs of.
Yeah, and people say them and then they use them incorrectly. So for example, on the banner and the slide, you see Cruikshank. Cruikshank was an Australian actually that came to Ireland after World War I and set up a firm of patent and trademark attorneys. But it's pretty distinctive in an Irish context, so we kept the name. That's a trademark. It's something that distinguishes your goods from somebody else's. You know, what do I get when I hire Jonathan Healy? Well, I know what I'm getting. That's, you know, really valuable. If you think about Gucci, you know, Gucci is incredibly valuable. Designs protect the aesthetic features of products as opposed to the functional features of products. So if I'm fond of a pint, so if you go down, if we could go down to the pub, which we can't clearly, and I was to buy a pint of Guinness, you'd know what the glass was going to look like, that it was going to come in and it'd have a, you know, a distinct shape. Same with Heineken, Carlsberg. You know, Bulmer is one of the greatest marketing exercises in Ireland. It's all about the shape, the feel, the aesthetics of the product. Copyright is really easy to understand, but it's probably the least understood form of IP. It's the right to copy something. Did you create something? Yes, I created something. Therefore, you have the right to copy it. You can't copyright something. It's not a verb. Okay? So if you take a photograph, you know, it generally refers to things of artistic merit. You know, develop a website, develop an app, they're protected by copyright. Did you create them? Yes, I did. Therefore, you have the right to reproduce them. And we spoke about ownership very, very briefly, and I'll just get this point across. When talking about copyright, if you employ a photographer to take photographs of, you know, Nick and Jack to appear on the front of their brochure, the photographer retains the intellectual property to those photographs unless he actually assigns it to you. So you need to know who owns these things. If you're getting software code written for you, the guy who writes the software code or the girl that writes the software code, they're going to own it. You know, you need to make sure that
that's where you lose the zero. That was my point.
Yeah. So then you have all sorts of other rights, which are plant breeders' rights, unregistered designs, unregistered, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the key thing here, and the first point, I call it VIP, but I'm bad with three-letter acronyms. The first part is actually I, which is to identify what the intellectual property is. Okay, what makes people buy from me? Is it because I've got great technology like Nick and Jack, or is it because I'm a great presenter like Jonathan Healy, or is it just because I'm wonderful like Mairead English, Mar? When you've identified that, then you use the correct form of IP to protect it, and then you value it. So you say to yourself, well, the truth is Richard Healy could start up broadcasting and you know, people might be confused, so that name's maybe not great. Nick and Jack might say, well, you know, you could do this a number of different ways, but this is the best way. But you try to put a value on it. I'm not talking necessarily that this is going to be worth 500 million 10 years from now, but is it worth protecting? And if it is, well, then you protect it accordingly. You put in place the relevant protection so that you are covered, should you get ripped off.
So we're going value, identify, and protect. VIP. Yeah. I like that. That's it. I like acronyms. They're easy to remember. By the way, folks, for those of you who are watching, there is an opportunity for you to throw questions in right now. So if you go to if you're watching us on a laptop or you're watching us on a tablet, there should be something over to this always catches me out still. That side of the screen. I think it's that side of the screen, the right-hand side of the screen, where you can actually click on the questions and send questions in. If you're watching us on a phone, it's down the bottom and you can send the question there. If you have a question for any of our speakers, we get to them in just a minute. The laws that are there to protect IP are fairly robust. I mean, we've had lots of discussions about Brexit, and we won't go into that because we'll be here for hours. But the law is there to help you if you have got an idea that is indeed unique.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, you know, patents, for example, are around since, you know, the 1800s and before, in fact. Trademarks last forever. So, you know, in theory, there are, and I just would struggle to come up with one right now, but if you think about very old names of companies that have been around forever, like Levi's, you know, they are incredibly valuable. The issue, I guess, is that it's, you know, you really have to be very careful that you're using the right form of intellectual property to protect the type of development that you're doing. I heard a well-known media producer yesterday suggest that a technical solution to a tilting screen could be protected by copyright. I don't know if anybody remembers that in the test. It could not be. It might be protectable by patents, but copyright does not protect technology. And it's important just to identify that. But Mairead said something great when she was talking earlier on, which was talk to experts. Like I put it another way, talk to somebody that knows the answer. You know, you're
it's
not
okay, but it's okay to admit that you don't know the answer, isn't it? Because I mean, again, we're talking about a young cohort of entrepreneurs here who haven't had their teeth cut at the sharp end of the spinning blade of entrepreneurship. So therefore, it's okay if you don't know the answer to something, and you can source a Richard O'Connor or someone similar.
Absolutely. Like I know lots of old entrepreneurs that really happily and willingly accept that they know nothing about lambing. You know, like why would I know about accountancy? I'm a trademark attorney, but I know lots of accountants.
But again, you, through eating lamb over the years, you haven't accrued any of that, any of the knowledge that Nick and Jack have, and that's okay to accept. Can I just put the nightmare scenario? Sorry, Richard, the nightmare scenario for any young entrepreneur is to come up with a fantastic idea and to say, this is going to revolutionize the world. Jesus, lads, we're minted, we're absolutely loaded. And then they find out someone got there before them.
Oh, that just doesn't happen. That really doesn't happen. I always say that we get three types of inventions stroke inventors. The first sort of called, I'll try to be as quick as possible, the why, you know, yeah, oh yes, they have you reaching for your wallet and you hand over cash, okay? I've seen one of those in my career of 20 years, turned out I was wrong, okay? The second group are what we call the why nots, okay? I'll come back to those. And the third group are the nutters, okay? Now, unfortunately with the nutters, sometimes they're not, you know, sort of insane. Sometimes they are. We've had perpetual motion machines, people turning water into oil and so on. But quite often they're just people that can't see that there isn't a market for what they're proposing, or they can't see that not everybody's going to be prepared to part with their hard-earned cash for something that a solution exists somewhere else for. The why nots are interesting. They're divided into two groups. The first group are people that are experts in a particular field. You take Nick and Jack. They knew there was a problem to do with lambing. They didn't know necessarily how they were going to fix it, or not lambing, but treating lambs. And they worked on it and they came up with a solution. They're very likely to succeed. The next set are the guys that come up with a problem in their own heads, the solution, but they don't really know what the problem is. Now, why if Jack and Nick come to me and say, here's my business plan, here, I want to file a patent, Richard, what do you think? I go, why not? Who am I to argue with them? They know far more about lambing and lambs than I do. But when the other group comes to me and say, Richard, what do you think about my business plan? What do you think about filing a patent for this? I go, well, here are the reasons why not. You know, have you done any patent searches? You know, first of all, have you gone out to the market? Have you seen what people are producing? Have you seen other people trying to solve this problem? 2010 was the wettest summer in recorded history in Ireland. How many people did you see selling or trying to sell clothesline covers in 2010? Do a Google search for how many patents have been filed for clothesline covers in the United States, and you'll come up with more than 5,000. How many do you see in your neighbors' backyards?
Yeah, but I only imagine what kind of things are actually going to come through the process now that will fail in the current environment when everybody is trying to come up with a situation that will inevitably change and improve. What last question to you on this, Richard, before we move to the question and answer session. Don't forget, you can send the questions and answers to us. It is over there, I think, or possibly over there, or maybe down there, but do send a question in. Patents are expensive. So how do you make the decision as to whether it's the right one at the right time for it? Is it through talking to someone like Cruikshank?
Yeah, patents are expensive, and that shouldn't be underestimated. And when you're talking about cash flow, you know, that's really when you start to have to think about this. They are expensive, but they get more expensive as you go along. And they are expensive, but they get more expensive depending on the size of the market that you're trying to protect. So what you would do typically with a patent is try not to disclose it publicly, as I've said already, until you are ready to go to market to see, can we sell a few of these, right? Now you can file a patent in Ireland if you go to the patents office yourself for 60 to 125 euros. If you go to a patent attorney and ask them, they'll probably charge you somewhere between 1,500 and 2 grand to file a patent. And nothing happens for 12 months. And if you use that 12 months to see, am I going to sell this? And then you come back to your patent attorney and say, okay, things are going pretty good. I'd like to look at my options here. They'll say to you, well, you know, how good is pretty good? And you might say, well, I've turned over 100 million or 100,000 or 100 euros. Well, the next step is about 10 grand.
Okay.
If you're selling 100 million, is 10 grand expensive?
No.
100,000? Depends. 100 quid? Keep your money for your children's inheritance, right? And then the next step is 18 months after that, and that's when you pick the individual countries, and you might be talking about 5,000 per country. So then it becomes market. You know, if I'm going to file in America, 350 million people, the most affluent market in the world, and it costs me 5 grand.
Yeah, well, exactly, and it comes down to it. But again, it's a baby step followed by a leap, followed by a massive jump, and you have to tread carefully. I want to head to the question and answer session because we need to wrap it up fairly shortly because it's nearly lunchtime, lads. And let's face it, everyone has a massive commute to the kitchen to get their lunch wherever they are. But Nick and Jack, to you first of all. I mean, we never gave the bull a boss at the very start because you won the Leo ICT Student Entrepreneur Awards in 2020. So bull a boss to you. Well done. Congratulations for that. But you've got a lot of other students here who are watching. These awards provide a lot of opportunity, don't they? And you do accrue skills as you go along. What should you grasp? What should you take in terms of opportunity presented by just being involved in these awards, never mind winning them?
Yeah, just firstly on the awards themselves, again, strongly recommend to enter them because of the opportunities. We were featured on social media, in national and international press, RTE, the Irish Examiner, Irish Independent, Silicon Republic. We got the prize money as well, which is quite nice.
Sorry, just got no news talk. No, Jesus, I'm not terribly sorry. We'll have to rectify that at some point.
And then definitely really valuable mentorship. And as I said, there's nothing like mentorship to accelerate you forward because digesting that feedback is just, there's nothing like, and Marie said it at the very start, friends and family can only tell you so much, and equally you might even become across a farmer who's just particularly kind towards you and doesn't want to offend you. There is nothing like independent people who, for the good of your own health and for your own future, will tell you the truth. In terms of skills, the Student Entrepreneur Awards, coming back to my first point, it's greatly improved our ability to speak and to convey our ideas. And this is so important in life because, as I said at the start, and I will repeat it again because it's so important, there are 3 primary predictors for success in life: your ability to speak, your ability to write, and your ability to communicate your ideas and how good those ideas are. So being able to speak very clearly is a very valuable skill to have, and it's why I keep saying it's so good to enter this competition, because at every stage you're trying to communicate the value your thing is delivering, if there's a market for it, and why your idea is better than everyone else's.
I mean, it's an opportunity as well to air your business as well, because a lot of the time it's theoretical in your own head until you start saying it out loud. So did you benefit from that, the idea of going through the competition, having to present to judges, having to put together those presentations? Did it make you better business people?
Absolutely. I mean, directly on the idea, as Richard mentioned, we went through a very similar, like we have a patent on the product now, but we went through the exact same process. We applied for an Irish short-term patent that bought us 12 months. And then over those 12 months where we were trying to assess, can this go ahead or not? It's just a low-cost way of being able to say, hello, we exist, do you like our idea or not, over a 12-month period. And the Student Entrepreneur Awards, like we got a 2-page feature in the Irish Independent, specifically the farming column, and that brought loads of phone calls. Coming back again to what Jack said, where can I buy it? When can I buy it? How much is it going to be? And that just keeps, at all stages, you're going to meet challenges along the way, non-stop. Like, I swear to God, in a business, there are 10 or 12 life or death moments every month, nearly, if not for some businesses every week. So it's just constantly, it's just up and down. One minute you think it's a roaring success, and next minute you think we're not going to sell anything here. Why don't we just give up? So having these assurances along the way that things are actually okay are very important, because when you come across a particularly persistent problem that you're having difficulty overcoming, you can look back and say, well, actually, this lad, and those other 100 people said they would buy it. So for all those reasons, we need to overcome this problem, because there is
sure it can't be as bad as the time we had X. That's a great leveler in business. It can't be as bad as that, surely. Mairead, the do's and don'ts for those who are thinking at this point that, you know, they're on the verge, and we'll give you the timelines and the deadlines and everything in a minute. What do students need to do right now?
Well, the first thing I would say is do the business plan and try not to be daunted by it. Approach it with an open mind. Approach it with the idea that if you don't have the information, that is a gap, and that's where I have to do further research and I have to get further information. Reach out for a bit of help. There's, as the guy said, you're not the only one to have ever faced a problem, so there's loads of people out there who are happy to have that chat with you. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone. You'll be surprised with how open people are to help you and to give you a steer. I suppose what I would say in terms of the business plan, and there'll be a template up on the Student Enterprise Awards website. It doesn't need to be at home. You know, I see business plans day in, day out, and the ones that are really effective are concise. They're not 70, 80 pages. They're very clear about who the market is, who the product is, what the product is, who the customer is. So if you can be very clear and, of course, do a good financial plan, because it all comes down to the numbers at the end of the day. Can I make money out of this? So, you know, best of luck with it. Don't be afraid of it. You know, try and seek a bit of help, and, you know, just best of luck with it. And look, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be iterated and changed over and over again. Actually, a business plan can be done 5, 6, 7, 10 times and can change, you know, every week sometimes, and every 12 months, 18 months. So look, give it a shot and best of luck with it.
If you're looking at the same business plan after 5 years, you definitely haven't done it right. Let's put it that way. I just want to finish up with one point, if I can. We are on, I think it's the 683rd day of January, the longest month in the history of all time. COVID-19 has impacted every single person, which is why we're here in 4 little boxes as opposed to in a room where we might actually be able to talk to real humans. Businesses pivot, businesses change. I'm going to ask one thing of each of you just before we wrap up today. What is your advice for somebody, and maybe this has meant that what they were thinking isn't going to work, or maybe what this has meant for them is they're going to have to accelerate it, or that they think that if they don't move now, it mightn't work for them? Richard, what advice would you give to someone who is taking all that external pressure and building it into their own business stress?
Don't be afraid to fail. Failure is part of life. It'll happen. It's okay. And remember, the best way to have a good idea is to have lots of ideas.
Okay, Nick and Jack, what would you say to those? I mean, you guys have pivoted quite successfully over the years as well, I'm sure. What do you say to people who are concerned right now that it's not quite what they thought it was going to be?
Yeah, when the world is a well-oiled machine, it's actually quite difficult to make an impact. And currently, the world is most definitely not a well-oiled machine. So, in fact, quite contrary to what some people might think, there's probably more opportunities out there right now than ever before to get into the headlines. Like, we got onto the Late Late Show with our organic lamb business because of the Irish Business Special and all part of the Shop Local movement. That's because we pivoted our business from being directly selling that lamb into hotels and restaurants to then selling it directly to the homeowner. So and it's all over the place. It's so much easier. I think there is a fantastic opportunity to be able to make a lot of noise at the moment and to have an impact. And on a more general note, just do it. Building on Richard's point, the sooner you get out there to confirm if it's a good idea or a bad idea, the sooner you get the knowledge and find the actual idea that will succeed. And that's the sooner you get to achieve your ambitions. You get to be the entrepreneur, the big boss, and then you can retire at 45 if you so wish. I'm 44. I need to get my skates off. Great. If I could leave the last word to you, look, I mean, the high potential startups. There's a big showcase coming up next month in the HPSU, where we've got the best and the brightest coming through of these businesses, and we know that the vast majority of them will probably not get to where they want to be, and they'll have challenges along the way, and there'll be those runaway successes as well.
it is part of life, isn't it? And that's worth remembering as well. If you're at this beginning stage of the journey, it might not be right now, but that doesn't mean it might not be right then.
No, and you know, it was Thomas Edison who said that it's about 1% genius and 99% perspiration and perseverance. And you know, we were working here in Enterprise Ireland with a huge range of clients, and my God, to see their their perseverance and the perspiration that they had to go through with COVID, but their resilience is just amazing to watch. You know, how they've pivoted, how they've changed. It's actually very inspiring, and it bodes really well for the future. So, you know, stick in there, go at it. There'll be lots of challenges along the way, but you know, they too pass, and in turn, in time, hopefully you can give that advice to other young aspiring entrepreneurs in the future.
Okay, lads, we'll leave it there. It's been an absolutely fascinating hour of discussion. Thank you so much for joining us. Richard O'Connor, Managing Partner at Cruikshank, Mairead English-Marr, Senior Development Advisor at HBSU, and Nick and Jack Cotter from Cotter AgriTech. Awkward waving time again, folks. Awkward waving. There we have. Thank you very much. We'll leave you to turn your cameras and your microphones off there. Don't go anywhere, though, because we've got a lot of detail to come about what might happen. You can turn your cameras off now. Off you go. There we go. Bang, bang, bang. Everybody gone. Magic. Put a look there. There we have it. Everyone's there. There's a lot, if you are a student, that you do need to do, and we've talked about it there, but we need to squash it all down into a very concise video, and it gives me great pleasure now to hand over to Anna Kinnock of Enterprise Ireland, who's going to talk us through what needs to be done. So let's have a look at that.
Welcome to the Student Entrepreneur Awards Competition 2021. The website has been revamped and we have a new look and feel to it. The new design is extremely user-friendly and it enables all users, lecturers and students to quickly and easily find the information most relevant to them. About the Student Entrepreneur Awards. The Student Entrepreneur Awards gives the young entrepreneurs a viable pathway to transform their smart ideas into commercial businesses. It is a great opportunity for ambitious and enterprising third-level students to build a real-world business venture. The awards aim to stimulate entrepreneurship and to encourage students to start their own business. The awards create an important opportunity for third-level students to work in cross-disciplinary teams, thereby enabling a significant and much-needed fusion between the disciplines of business, science, engineering and IT. The sponsors, Enterprise Ireland, Cruikshank, Grant Thornton and the local Enterprise Office, bring their expertise to the competition to support entrepreneurs in developing viable businesses and creating jobs. Entries must meet the following criteria. Students must be registered full-time in a third-level college in Ireland. The competition is open to both undergrads and postgrads. Entries can be from individuals or teams. Joint entries from different colleges are eligible, but if the entry gets to the final stage, one college must take the lead. Students from overseas are not eligible to apply. Not-for-profit and social entrepreneurship applicants must operate in a commercial domain. Students must have an ambition to start their business in Ireland and base their headquarters here. The maximum number is 5 students per team. Competition overview. Have you a novel idea for a business? Is your idea well thought out and researched? Is there a market for the product or the service? The product must have commercial potential and be exportable, manufacturing product or internationally traded service. Students must own, control and manage their business intellectual property where applicable. We encourage collaboration and we like to see cross-section department teams teaming up. Massive cash prize and specialist advice available to winners. Students must submit an online application and a 2-minute video by the closing date of the 12th of March 2021. The entry form is available on our website www.studententrepreneurs.com. The competition comprises of 3 stages. Stage 1, the video submission with a closing date of the 12th of March. Stage 2, the business plan. students requested to submit a business plan the 9th of April. And stage 3, the final and the award ceremony, will take place on the 10th and the 11th of June 2021. Stage 1, the video submission. First impressions do count. This is an important opportunity for the students to present themselves as well as their idea. Remember, the judges are the people who can help them turn their idea into a business. It's important that students provide key information about their business idea. The clearer the information, the easier it is for the judges to identify the entries with real commercial potential. How to sell your business idea to the judges. Be passionate about the idea. The judges are interested in the people as well as the idea. Be impactful and clear. With 2 minutes to tell the full story, clearly define the proposition in the first 30 seconds. Video tips. Record in a quiet place with no background noise so that the sound quality is good. Imagine you're pitching to the customer. Speak clearly with a level tone of delivery. Practice makes perfect. Do plenty of practice before making the final cut. And ask for help. Ask your family members or friends to give feedback during the production. The video requirements. Number 1, clearly define the business proposition or the business idea. Number 2, explain the problem it solves and how it works. And number 3, highlight how the idea is innovative. Number 4, identify your target customers and explain why they would buy it. And 5, highlight the idea's export potential. What the judges look for. Is there a market for the product or service, and has it got commercial potential? What is the unique selling point? Has the team developed a proof of concept for their product or service? Have the teams tested their product or service with real users in their target market? Does the team have an understanding of the key financials? Stage 2, the top 50 teams submit their business plan. A business template is forwarded to students for completion. Students are requested to complete all sections of the business plan, no more than 10 pages max. Information such as promoters' contact details, brief details on the idea, no more than 2 pages. The marketing, describe how the market research was carried out and give examples. The market mix, describe the market size and the number of possible customers, your market trends. Have you legally protected your product or service, the IP? And the finance, the likely investment and the cost for the first 12 months, profitability. Stage 3, the final. The judges, Enterprise Ireland, Grant Thornton, Cruikshank and the local enterprise office. The criteria assessed: your 2-minute video, the project concept, the planning and projections, finance, your presentation, the approach and the delivery of that. Reasons to enter. It's an opportunity to become an entrepreneur. Students can create the businesses they want to work in with unique support from the Student Entrepreneur Awards. It helps students stand out. Taking part in this prestigious award demonstrates the commitment to innovation and helps build your networks. Cash to fund the startup business. 35,000 in cash prizes, with the overall winner receiving 10,000. And expert advice and mentoring support is available from Enterprise Ireland and the programme sponsors. We look at some case studies. Micron Agritech Limited, winner of the Leo ICT Award in 2019. Daniel, Sean, Tara and Jose, representing TU Dublin, with their project Tashdal. Tashdal is a portable testing kit that allows farmers or vets to detect parasitic infections in cattle instantly and on site. Samples are analysed via the Tashdal app through a revolutionary machine learning process. This saves time and reduces spending on medication. Micron Agritech are an EI HBSU client and recently secured CSF funding. Tippy Talk, our overall winner of the Student Entrepreneur Awards in 2015, Rob Latham, representing Limerick Institute of Technology. Tippy Talk, his project, is a picture-based communication platform that allows people with non-verbal disabilities like autism, stroke, traumatic brain injury to communicate with pictures that translates into text messages that are sent out to people's phones. Since the awards in 2015, TippyTalk has gone on to become active in 50 countries, with 84% of the users based in the US. TippyTalk has just completed its second innovation communication tool for non-verbal people called TippyTalk Edu, and is being sold into the school systems across the US. TippyTalk is an EI HBSU accelerator client. Stridetech Limited, winner of the Cruikshank Award in 2017, Warren, Keane, Kevin and Jonathan, representing Cork Institute of Technology. Their project, Stridetech, is a modern, innovative and life-changing mobility aid, which creates independence and freedom for all of its users. Since winning the Cruikshank Award in 2017, Stridetech have greatly progressed the development of their mobility aid and have achieved unprecedented success on the global stage for an Irish developmental project. In 2019 at iCreate, the International Convention on Rehabilitation, Engineering and Assistive Technology in Canberra, Australia, Stridetech team won the prestigious First Place Technology Gold Award in the Global Student Innovation Challenge. Stridetech are currently working on advancing their project and developing their business further under the auspices of Student Inc. at the CIT Student Incubation Programme, Rubicon Centre, Cork. And lastly, Neurobel, our overall winner of the Student Entrepreneur Awards for 2020. Mark O'Sullivan, representing University College Cork. His project, the Neurobel EEG monitor, is a medical device for the early diagnosis and monitoring of brain injuries in newborns. Through its pocket-sized design and onboard decision support, the Neurobel EEG monitor will allow medical staff to assess brain injuries soon after birth, so that the high-risk newborns can be quickly identified for effective treatment. Since the awards, Neurobel has continued to develop the technology towards clinical readiness. As a result of the success at the Student Entrepreneur Awards, Neurobel's network has grown significantly, adding the global expertise required to bring the product to market. Neurobel is working with Enterprise Ireland to secure further funding to achieve their commercialisation goals. The key dates for 2021 are as follows. Closing date for the 2-minute video submissions on the 12th of March. The top 50 teams requested to submit a business plan on the 9th of April. The deadline for the receipt of the top 50 business plans is the 7th of May. And the top 10 finalists are announced on the 21st of May. The top 10 teams will present virtually to the judges on the 10th of June. Winners announced and the closing ceremony on the 11th of June 2021. Find out more, visit thestudententrepreneurs.com. I encourage you now to team up with your colleagues and friends to be innovative, collaborative and creative and coming up with products that would help you to explore your idea and own appetite for going into business for yourself. Good luck to all the students entering the Student Entrepreneur Awards competition in 2021. If you have any queries, please email to studentawards@enterprise-ireland.com. Thank you.
Anna, thank you very much indeed for that presentation. So that's it for this afternoon's webinar, folks. 6 weeks left before the competition closes on the 12th of March. Do take that leap, submit your 2-minute video, turn your ideas into a commercial reality and apply to the awards today. The prizes, as we mentioned at the start, 35,000 in cash with business consultancy support from Enterprise Ireland and the programme sponsors that we listed earlier. Now is the time. If you haven't done it yet, or if you're thinking of getting there, get there faster because you will not regret it. As I said, it's a long January, but a good year ahead of us, fingers crossed. Thank you so much for playing so much attention throughout this presentation on behalf of everybody at the Student Entrepreneur Awards. Thank you so much, and wish you a very good day, and we'll talk to you again soon. From me, Jonathan Healy, good afternoon.